everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Jessica and this is A Field's Full House. At the end of Harper's birth video, I had said that I was going to share a little bit more about Harper in an upcoming video. So I hope I can give this story justice. I don't have anything prepared. I'm just kind of winging it. But after Harper was our 8th baby, and after she was born, obviously we were super excited. But shortly thereafter, in my mama heart, deep down, as most moms can tell you, I just knew something wasn't right. And that is not something that any mom ever wants to experience or feel. And I remember saying to my husband, something's not right. And he, of course, has told me, he was like, you're paranoid. He's like, you've said this with all the babies, with all the kids. And I don't honestly think that I have. So anyways, when she was... What?
Sorry, I didn't know you were in here.
What? I'll be out in a minute, okay? So, when she was, I guess 3 days old. Yeah, it was 3 days old. You know, I took her into the pediatrician for her newborn checkup. And we, before we had Harper, we had purchased a truck for my husband. It's a extended cab, but it's, you know, the shorter extended cab, so the doors have to be open. I don't even know what those are called. Suicide doors? Is that what those are called? Anyways, I say that because it's important. We had never had an infant in the truck before. We've always had a van, and, you know, the infant car seat wasn't really an issue or anything like that. So I drove her to the pediatrician appointment in the truck. And when we got home, which I had stopped after the pediatrician appointment, popped in and just said hi to my mom. I didn't even get the baby out of the car seat. She kind of peeked at the baby. Like, I didn't even get her out of the truck. Like, we stood outside the truck talking. She peeked at the baby and was like, you know, whatever, okay, well, you get home, because she knew, obviously, I had just had a baby. I probably shouldn't have been driving, but this is what happens when you have more kids, is you drive a whole lot sooner. Anyway, so whenever I got home, my husband was outside, greeted me, and he went to take the baby car seat out of the truck. And I got a glance. He didn't, I mean, he, you know, unlatched it from the base and was carrying it out, just started screaming, her lips are blue, her lips are blue. And I'm freaking out. And my husband was like, chill, she's fine. He immediately, you know, we didn't go inside. He just set her down right there on the ground, in the car seat, and took her out of the car seat. And then her lips weren't blue anymore. They were blue. But it was kind of like one of those, like, were my eyes playing tricks on me? So I immediately looked at my husband and I was like, did you see that? And he was like, well, I thought I did, but she looks fine. She was breathing. Everything was fine. He was like, well, maybe, you know, the truck was just too cold. It's like, first of all, there's no AC vents in the back of the truck. And second of all, and I know this because I've ridden in the back of the truck and my husband hasn't. And he was like, what do you mean there's no AC vents? I was like, there's no AC vents back there. Second of all, your lips don't turn that blue when you're cold. But with a newborn, you know, anyways. So obviously, I held her, you know, really close, and I even said to my husband, I was like, should I call the doctor? Like, that just seems weird. He was like, I don't really think that there's anything that they can do right now. You know, like, her lips appeared to be blue. So my first thought was the car seat wasn't installed correctly. It being the truck, it's a small, that's why it's important that it was a truck. It's a smaller area than what we're used to. And I had asked him, because my husband, I have 8 kids, y'all, and I can't install a car seat to save my life. My husband handles all this. So I asked him, I was like, was it installed correctly? Was the level right? You know, he was like, yeah, of course it was, you know. I was like, well, because now, like, reports are coming out where if a baby is left in the car seat, which that's what we did all the time with the older kids. I mean, that's just what you did. You carried them in the car seat and you left them in it. I mean, obviously while you're with them. But now all these reports are coming out that babies have died from sitting in the car seats too long because their necks aren't fully supported and whatever. So of course that's what I'm thinking, and I'm freaking out. So anyways, time goes on. I'm watching her closely, and I keep all my newborns in the rock and play, or in like a, It's called a baby papasan seat. You know, the little, my brain, y'all. The little seats, so they're at an incline, because I just feel like babies rest better at a slight incline. All my babies have had reflux, so I've just naturally have always had them at a slight incline to help with that. So anyways, I noticed it. I can't remember how much farther from the first time that I noticed the blue lips from being in the truck. And then I want to say maybe a week or two later, I saw it again. And I mean, you know, that heart sink, and I'm running to her and I pick her up, and immediately the blue coloring is gone. And I was like, am I seeing things? Like, this is weird. I don't think that I would see this twice. My husband wasn't home. None of the bigger kids were around. So I told him about it, and he's like, that is odd. He's like, maybe she was cold. I'm like, she's not cold. I'm like, so anyways, I just knew, and that's whenever I was saying to him, something's not right. Like, that is not normal. And then I want to say it was a week later, I was getting ready we were getting ready to go somewhere, me and all the kids, and I had her in the rock and play, and Miley at the time was 5 years old. She came and got me. I was putting my makeup on, and she came and got me and said, the baby is blue. I ran as fast as I could, and she wasn't blue, but she wasn't pink either. Picked her up, and immediately the coloring went away. I'm talking like, you know, as soon as you pick them up, I mean, the coloring went away, or the bluish coloring went away. So I called the doctor. We went to the doctor, you know, they looked over, everything appears to be normal, everything appears to be fine. She probably just has reflux and was getting choked up on it. Okay, again, y'all, I've had 8 kids. Most of them have had reflux. Never had this issue before. So I'm going to kind of just skip ahead because this video will get very long. We had several other very scary instances of her being completely blue. Most of the time it was whenever, of course, I'm always next to the newborn. It was whenever I was washing the bottles or washing the dishes, and I asked our 10-year-old at the time to sit next to her on the couch and watch her, because now I'm, you know, totally freaking out. If I couldn't be right next to her, I had one of my big girls next to her. And I'm washing the bottles. And Addie, instead of, I mean, she's 10, so she came and got me and said, she's blue. And I'm like, just scream when this happens so I can come running. Because by the time I was getting there, and I'm talking like 30 seconds, like it's not, you know, even a minute, the coloring it would go away like that. So I rushed her to the pediatrician's office. They sent me to the ER. And looking back, I'm kind of like, why did I because I kept going to the pediatrician's office. I don't know why I kept going to the pediatrician's office. I think in my mind, I'm trying to avoid the ER because I'm home. My husband's at work. I'm at home. I've got 7 other children. Who wants to go to the ER with 8 kids, let alone the ER at all, you know? So anyways, they sent me to the ER. I got a sitter for the kids. I don't even remember what I did. So much of this was reaction that, looking back, it was totally God how he provided every step of the way, from people watching the kids to my sanity. So they admitted me overnight for observation to keep an eye on her. And what they determined was the cause was, it seemed like every time she was doing this, she was at an incline. So they said possibly her trachea was underdeveloped and that I needed to keep her laying flat. And I'm like, what does that mean, that I can't put her in a car seat, that we can't go anywhere? Like, what does this mean? No, you can still go places, you can still do things, but you need to keep her laying flat as possible. So, and I'm like, you know, is she not breathing? Is she not getting oxygen when she is turning blue? They said, we don't know, because, I mean, there's no way for them to know. If she's turning blue, chances are she isn't getting oxygen. So I was discharged and went home. And what's funny is, I want to say, what? Okay, I'll be out in a minute. One of our pastors came and visited me at the hospital, and he asked me, and it's like, I like it when people ask you these questions that really like, I don't know. He just looked at me and said, in your mama gut, what do you think this is? And I mean, it kind of paused me because that's a deep question. I said, I don't think it's reflux. Because that must have been after the second hospital visit. We ended up being admitted 4 times, okay? So, like I said, it's all a blur. So, again, we come home, you know, stuff's happening. They were progressively getting longer and progressively getting worse, meaning more blue. And she was becoming very stiff-like, very still. Most of the time, her eyes were closed. And that was another thing that I had said to my husband that wasn't right, is she was sleeping a lot. Newborns sleep a lot, naturally. And that's what he said. He was like, oh, what do you mean she's sleeping a lot? She's a newborn. I was like, she is sleeping a lot. Well, then we had a few cases where her eyes were open. And when she did this, and again, I'm talking it's 20 seconds, 25 seconds, 30 seconds. When she did it one time with her eyes open, she was not there. Like, looking at her, she is turning blue. You can tell that she's not breathing. She is very stiff, and she is not conscious of what is going on. She is staring off. So I think it was after our second ER visit, they said to get video. Because, which, I don't know how doctors, what is the word that I'm looking for? Diagnose, sorry. I don't know how doctors diagnose stuff before there were smartphones and that we can videotape everything and take pictures, because that just amazes me. I was like, what do you mean take a video? I am like freaking out that my baby is not breathing and you're telling me to take a video? So I got a video. We were actually on our way to the pediatrician's office again. And they even said, they were like, it's probably reflux. I mean, it doesn't sound completely right, but yeah, you know, let's go back to the ER. And 2 times they called ahead for me. So I was straight admitted. I didn't have to go through the ER wait, which was nice. So then I had this video because it was on the way to the doctor's office. And I showed it to the pediatrician. And I said, tell me this is reflux and that I don't have to go to the ER. And she looked at it and she said, I've never seen reflux look like this. And I said, and mind you, this is mild. This is not as severe as it has gotten. And you know, which I had been describing to the doctors and stuff. And not the first pediatrician that saw us and when we were admitted in the children's hospital said to me, if you were not an experienced mother, I would dismiss you, because this sounds, I mean, there's nothing the matter with this baby. All her stats are fine. And after being admitted twice now, just for overnight, she hadn't done it. And I said that she doesn't do this every day. It's like every 3 to 4 days. But by the time, you know, I stay a night in the hospital and it's been 48 hours, and then, you know, I go home, it's another 24 hours, she does it again. So anyways, she said, you need to go straight to the hospital. And I mean, she's asked me, how are you sleeping? I was like, I'm not. My husband and I were taking shifts. He was staying up, and he's still working. He was staying up from 11 p.m. Like, I went to bed typically between 10 and 11. So I went to bed. He stayed up holding her from about 10, 11 o'clock at night, sitting on the couch till 2 o'clock in the morning. And then he would come to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, he would wake me up and I would take over. So I would have her the rest of the night and into the morning. And I would sit up on the couch holding her. Now, we were sleeping as much as you can, sitting up holding a newborn that you're afraid is going to stop breathing at any minute. Because we were running on pure exhaustion. We hadn't really, I was talking to a few very close friends about what was going on. And thank God the people that are in my lives really helped steer. I am not a medical professional, you know. 2 of those friends, one's husband is a physician's assistant, and another one was in school becoming a physician's assistant. So obviously she was like on point with everything, because she's in school like studying this. And my friend's husband, who is a physician's assistant, they actually have had 2 children who had seizures. And after I sent her some of the videos, and she called me and she was like, Jessica, we believe that this is seizures. My heart just sank. I was like, okay. She said, when you go, you need to demand to see a neurologist. They had already sent in a cardiologist I don't think they had sent in a gastro doctor yet. I can't remember if it was this, I think it was the third ER visit or hospital stay. I was like, I want to see a neurologist. I have been talking to, this is a teaching hospital too where we go. So I was having to relay everything to a medical student, to the residents that came in, then to finally the, practicing pediatricians that were there, and then the specialists that they would send in. And anybody that came in that door, I said, I am not leaving here until I see a neurologist. We don't think that's necessary. We really don't think that this is anything neurological. And they gave me their spiel, and I said, that's great. Have a neurologist come in and tell me that, because I am not leaving until I see a neurologist. So they finally sent in a neurologist, and in walks this neurologist, and I find out later that he has been, obviously they go through their schooling and their residency and stuff, but he had only been like attending for 3 or 4 months. I find this out later. What do you need? Huh? Okay, what do you need? Okay. So, anyways, I show him this video that I had. I'm going to be a little bit pain, okay? Okay, sorry. So, anyways. So, the neurologist came in. He saw my video, and I said, mind you, this is very mild. Like, I was kind of hesitant to show this video because it was so mild compared to what she was doing. But at the same time, it's the only thing that I had. And he looked at the video, and he said, I see why you're concerned. This does not appear, this isn't normal, or, I hate using that word, but I don't think that this is seizures. And I was like, okay, then what the heck is it? So they sent me to a gastro doctor. So a gastro doctor comes in, and they swore that it was reflux. They wanted me to switch her. I was nursing and formula feeding. They wanted me to switch her formula to the Infantile, not AR, I can't think of it. They're really expensive stuff, which I just think is a scam, but anyways, that's a whole nother thing. So, and when you're staying at the children's hospital, they supply all the diapers and formula. So they switched out the formula and brought that in, and I was like, this isn't what it is. And I'm telling you, y'all, I was on top of them. I was asking questions. I was going, whatever. And at this point, this time I think we stayed 2 nights. They were like, well, we're going to have you stay for 2 nights, and let's see if we can get her doing this here. She did not do it. So on the flip side, it's not really the doctor's fault, because it was not happening in the hospital. They can only go off of this little video that I have of her. So we stayed for 2 nights. We were released, and they told me, obviously, if anything worse happens, come back in, blah, blah, blah. So this point, my husband and I are just like broken. We are running on no sleep. My husband, thankfully, his boss was, my husband works for a company that is not like, sure, you're having a family emergency, you can go home. They are just, it's a big company. They just work them to the bones. And it's just not something that he can just leave in the middle of. He's not sitting at a desk. Not like the owning desk jobs or anything like that. He just cannot physically leave because there's a family emergency. He has to tie up all his loose ends and stuff. So that's very hard. A lot of times, like if he's done with a specific job, he can leave in a family emergency, but it's a pain in the butt, okay? Thankfully, we were able to kind of like juggle his actual days off with his work days. So say this happened on a Monday, Tuesday, he was able to take those days as his off days and then end up working later in the week. So we literally were like running shifts. And again, they don't switch days around or anything. Like your off day is your off day and you don't switch around. So they were very accommodating and nice, especially compared to some experiences that we had had before, which mind you, they should be anyways, but this is what I mean by like God intervening. So we weren't losing pay, but he wasn't getting overtime either, which we used the overtime. So again, we were running on fumes. We were exhausted. Only a few people knew what we were going through. Then comes some worse cases that she was having. They were progressively getting worse and scarier. We had called the paramedics, in which one of the firemen actually go to our church, and he was the one who was on call. And they come in, and by the time that we had called him, because to this point she was like blue. And I was like, call 911. I'm like, I'm just going to call 911 every time that this happens because I'm freaking out. Called 911. By the time that they came, they told us, this is, more than likely reflux. She was getting choked up, and I was just like, if someone tells me that this is reflux, I'm going to scream. And they showed us kind of how to hold and like do the baby, not the Heimlich, but to kind of help get her to go, because that's like the thing. She would have this blue case and then end up, you could hear her, I will be there in a minute. Go to your room. We had some not good attitudes, so he has to wait for me. So anyways, and you could hear her kind of gasp for air. It wasn't like a, because she's, 3-4 weeks old, 5 weeks old. It was like a, you could just hear, and that's when you would see the pink come back. So anyways, she had some scarier cases, and we got these on camera. My husband was home. See, that's the thing, like, if I was by myself, I couldn't record it because I'm worried about her, and anyway, so he recorded it, and I was like, we're going back to the doctor. And he said, yeah. So I went back to the doctor, showed him, and even my husband was telling me, like, this is before I went back to the doctor. He's like, I agree that you need to go back to the doctor, but we also have to give this new formula a chance. We have to give it time and trust what the doctors are saying, that this is reflux. They had put her on Zantac. I was like, this isn't reflux. And he was like, well, we haven't really given it time either. Like, she had been on the medicine for a day. So literally, like, we weren't even home 24 hours and she had this bad case. It was a minute and a half. Yes, a minute and a half of holding your baby, blue, stone cold, not moving. I say stone cold. She wasn't cold, but stiff, stone stiff, not moving. And this time, she was doing this weird arm curl thing, is what I called it. Just her arm was moving. You could tell it was uncontrollable. Her eyes were closed. And after each of these things, she would become very, very sleepy, and she could sleep for hours. And I would just literally, everything fell apart in the house. I literally sat on the couch and held her all day long. I mean, as much as I could. I had, to use the bathroom or wash dishes, or not like a ton. Like, I would let the dishes pile up. Like, and that's not like me at all. My husband would come home from work after working 10 to 12 hours, and he would wash the dishes, or he would sit and hold the baby so I could get stuff done. Meaning, laundry and dishes. I mean, it was pure, when you say survival mode, like, this was beyond survival. I think we were just literally eating like cereal and sandwiches or whatever my older girls can cook. They can do a lot, which was obviously a huge blessing, and they all stepped up and were absolutely amazing during this. Because going back and forth to the doctor, the first time, I might be telling y'all too many details, but my baby would stop breathing, and I didn't know when it would happen. And I didn't know what was causing it. And most of the time I was just taking her to the doctor. I would bring one of the 3 older girls to come with me and sit next to her on the car ride there. And I literally told them, stare at her. Do not look away. Because I'm talking, sometimes it was 20 seconds. And so they would. And then they would have to sit with me in the ER or sit with me in the hospital room until my husband got there to come and get them. I mean, it wasn't, they were amazing during this. But it was also very scary for them too. But they were incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I think throughout this whole thing that's what kept me steady. Because I was firm with the doctors and said my thoughts and whatever, but I wasn't quite panicking until our 4th admittance. Because I had to. I have 8 children that are relying on me. I can't flip out. I can't freak out. And that's also, I think, my defense mechanism. Anyway, so we had these couple bad cases. I'm sorry, I know I'm jumping all over the place. It's kind of hard to relay all the information. So I head to the pediatrician's appointment, showed him the new videos, and he looked at me and said, why are you coming here? Why are you not going to the ER? I said, because they keep telling me it's reflux, and I trust your judgment as our pediatrician that you have been for the last 8 years. If you tell me that this is reflux, I will cool my goose. but I don't think this is reflux. And he said, I don't think it's reflux either. He said, you need to go back to the ER. I had my sweet Peyton with me. This was her turn to come. I felt so bad for her because this was the worst one where Mama came unglued. But I think it was also good that it was her, because had it been Addison feels all the emotions in the room. And she would have just panicked with me. But Peyton was very, and I'm sure that she was feeling things, but she was just very quiet. She read her book, she did her drawings and whatever. But she wasn't outwardly panicking. Which, I don't know if that's good or bad. In the moment, it was good, but I don't know what she was really feeling later, you know? Anyway, so we go to the ER. They did not direct admit me this time. I'm walking into the ER, and she's doing it. Finally in the hospital. But it's as she's in my arms, and I'm not even admitted yet. Like, I am signing the paper that, you know, I need to be seen at the ER. And I said to the receptionist, I need you to get somebody right now because my baby's about to stop breathing. She's about to turn blue. And she kind of was like, hello, do they not train ER receptionists? Isn't this an emergency situation? Like, they should be prepared. And so she picks up the phone. We need somebody up here. And I said, no, now. And I just started screaming because I knew that this was only going to last 20 to 30 seconds. And she was like fumbling and going everywhere. And again, this is what I mean by, like, she obviously did not appear trained, or I was just that loud and scary that I scared her. I don't know. So anyways, 2 nurses came right away, and they saw the end of it, and they said, guess what? She probably was just choking up on some reflux. It's like, it's not reflux! So anyways, they get me back there. Now they're doing blood work. They put an IV in her, which if you have ever been around when an infant gets an IV, and the ER pediatrician came in, which I've actually seen him before with another child. An older gentleman who was, I mean, pediatricians are knowledgeable, but you could just tell, like, he was very knowledgeable and very much cared. And he looked at me and said, why did they send you home? I showed him the videos. And I said, can you walk me upstairs and tell them that? So, needless to say, we were admitted. And the resident that was there was one that we had had before, and I am a basket case. I am bawling my eyes out. And he looked at me and he said, I am so sorry that this has happened. You will not be going home until we figure this out. We don't know if it's going to be a week. We don't know if it's going to be 2 weeks. It could be a couple days. We have no idea. It just all depends on her. So, that's who greeted me. Again, like, we were a known name at this point at the children's hospital. So then in walks the attending doctor. I actually had not seen her before. And you could just tell, like, I don't know, her demeanor is like, I knew that this was the lady that was going to get stuff going. The other doctors were very good. This was also over the weekend, so I'm sure that, you know, it's a different doctor from during the week to the weekend, because all before it was during the week. And she looked at the videos, and she just looked at me and she said, we're going to rule out that this is seizures first. I said, finally. So, in walks the same neurologist later on. He saw my new video, and he said, I am so sorry that you're going through this, but I still, and I hate to say this because I know that you, are not going to be happy with me. I don't think that this is seizures. He said, but the one thing that has me concerned is you say that she's very sleepy afterwards. I said, yes, she is. So, he said, we had already previously done an EEG, okay? I think that was the second admittance. I think I left that part out. They had done an echocardiogram. They had done an EEG. They had done something else. An EKG. They had done, what else? I don't even remember now. Anyways, the first EEG showed nothing. Normal brain activity, normal everything. And from what he said was, it would show something. If something was off neurologically, this EEG would show something. I was hearing two different fighting factors on this. I heard that the EEG would show something regardless, whether she had this episode while she was on the machine or not. Then from another doctor, I heard not necessarily, it would not show it. She needs to be having an episode while she's on the EEG machine. Okay, she was only on that machine for an hour the first time. And again, like, this happens once every 4 days. Like, we're talking about needle in a haystack here. Like, how are we going to catch this thing? So, anyway, so they hooked her up to an EEG machine, and this thing was not going to come off until she had an episode. And hopefully it would not be any longer than 48 to 72 hours. They would re-examine probably around 72 hours if she had not had one yet. If you have ever been around an EEG thing, it's a lot, especially on a newborn. You know, all these wires and stuff, and she's connected to this contraption, and all I did was hold her. So, you know, we had a very short cord, and anyways, praise the Lord, 24 hours into this thing, not even, she had an episode. It was very, very minor, and I don't even know that I would have caught it if I was not holding her. And I had and if y'all know, nurses determine everything. And during this time, because I've had some nurses that were kind of and then I had some amazing nurses. During this time, I had an amazing nurse when we found out what was going on. Harper's crying now. And you have to hit this button so that they can pinpoint on the EEG brain scales, whatever you call it, so that they can see it easier. So she was sitting there. She's like, I see what you're talking about. And it was just so minor. It was literally like 5 seconds. So we hit the button. Neurologist came in within an hour. And he said, I looked at what you said. And he said, I'm sorry to tell you that is not a seizure. And I'm like, oh my word. He's like, but we're going to ride this thing out. This was very minor from what you said. Like, you know, we are going to figure this thing out. We're not going to take her off the machine. It was maybe a couple hours later. So I'm talking to my good friends through texts and stuff, and they're checking on me and whatnot. And she said, okay. She was like, Lord, we have been praying for this thing to go away, but we need her to do it now. My cousin also called me. What's the matter? Is that the pretty girl? Okay. Where's her papa? Hi. So here's the pretty girl now. Can you say hi?
Look, say hi. I have face paint.
Say hi. She's trying to get to the phone. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, sorry. So, our prayer literally changed. That door didn't close all the way. To, you know, Lord, please take this thing away. To, God, we need this to happen, and we need this to happen now. My cousin had called me. And she was praying, and I had nurses in then, and I didn't care who was in there. I stopped, and we were praying, and even the nurse said, wow. She said, that's a really good friend. I was like, actually, she is a good friend too, but that's my cousin. And she was like, that was very powerful. It wasn't even 5 minutes later, Harper had another seizure. And it was about 20 to 25 seconds long. The machine did show that she had that it went down to 70, I think, from what they could scale or whatever on the machine. Whatever. We hit the button. The nurses were in the room with me because that was always my concern. This thing happened so quickly. What if y'all aren't in here? What if, the nurse was there. She is actually the one that hit the button. The neurologist was in there in under 30 minutes, which is kind of amazing to me. And he came in and he said, Harper's so crying. I'm sorry. I was wrong. You were right. And I commend you for fighting for your daughter, which I don't need that. I'm going to fight for my daughter regardless. And he said, and not only was that a seizure, I went and looked at the little tiny blip that you had seen before and compared the two. And in comparison, that was a seizure as well. As much as you don't want to hear that I think she was 8 weeks old at this point. I think we started this when she was 5 weeks old. Going to the ER and stuff. You don't want to hear that your newborn baby is having infantile seizures, but at the same time, we knew what was happening. Praise the Lord. Now we can do something about it. Oh, I'm like reliving this. My biggest concern was, and throughout this whole time that I was saying to them, is she losing oxygen? Is she going to have permanent damage from this? I need to know these answers. And every single time they said to me, we do not know. There's no way of knowing, especially with a newborn. Whew. So, after several other tests, MRI, full shebang, they immediately, and so get this, okay. So I texted my good friend. She did it. I'm waiting for the neurologist. And she said, okay. And she exact text back was, okay, baby Harper. Our prayer now is go big or go home. At the time, I didn't really know what she meant by this. Later on, we talked about it. And I'm like, you're praying for my baby to have seizures? She was like, Jessica, the neurologist had to see this. Like I said, the neurologist came in really quick. And we had stayed 48 hours before, and nothing had happened. So she had this tiny thing. A couple hours later, she had a seizure. And then the neurologist comes in. He's looking her over. We're talking. And she's starting to have a seizure. I said, this is it. This is how it starts. So he saw it. And you should have seen the look on his face go from... Okay. Just set it up there. Have Taylor pick her up. Go from being, an in-charge doctor to his complete facial expression changing to a concerned dad. Not that he's her dad by any means, but he is a dad. And his wife was also pregnant at that time. And you could just see it change. He hit the nurse button. They had the medicine in there in under 5 minutes. So she is on Keppra. She takes it twice a day, every 12 hours. We stayed in the hospital for another 72 hours to make sure that she wasn't going to have any more and that we didn't need to change her dosage and stuff. She did not have a seizure while we were in there again. Excuse me. And she was like, within a few hours of being on this medicine, she was a different baby. She was awake. She was alert. She was looking at me and she was smiling more than, what she had been, which was very, very minimal. I am. I'm so sorry for all these interruptions. So, anyways, my house is falling apart. I need to go. They let us go home. That night, she had another seizure. She actually had two. One was very small. So they upped her medicine. And after that, she did not have another seizure. That was October 5th of last year. They upped her dosage in July based off of her body weight because you were slowly going to wean yourself off this medicine. And I'm more of a natural route type person, but there also is a time for medicine and intervention and stuff.
Harper's crying.
Okay, bring her in here. Bring me her bottle too, please. So, anyways, since then, even before we upped her dosage, she has not had another seizure. And in my heart, in my gut, I know that she is healed by Jesus. I don't know how. Here. Hi, baby. Say, and this is the sweet girl. We give me tissue. She's got a little cold right now. Say hi. Say, we're talking about you.
Bye. She was a pill.
Oh, thanks. She has not missed one milestone. She is walking. She is talking. That was the biggest thing that doctors weren't. Okay, I'll be out in a minute, okay? No, I'll be out there in a minute. Is their localized seizures. They were in the left temporal lobe. You want your bottle? There you go. They were in the left temporal lobe, which is what affects the speech area. So that was the biggest thing, is that they weren't sure if it would affect her speech. But we won't know for sure, obviously until later. She is saying mama. She says uh-oh. She's starting to say dada. She babbles. It was like every time I was getting freaked out about a milestone, like she's not really doing this, she would do it like within a few weeks. The neurologist is just amazed every time I see him, because we have our follow-up appointments. He just sits there and apologizes over and over again for not. He listened to me, and I said that to him. I was like, listen, you listened to me. You did not dismiss me. You are not one of these doctors that came in as a know-it-all and said, this is not seizures, you're crazy, you need to leave. You listened to me. And I said, if you take this case and you learn from it, and the next mom that comes in and is super concerned, and you listen to her, and you have learned a new way that seizures present themselves. Not that it makes it worth it for me, but on your end as a doctor, I get it, you know. Not every case presents the same. And that was his thing. He was like, I mean, there was no convulsions, but I honestly think that she was progressively getting worse and that convulsions probably were going to start happening had we not, you know, figured out what it was then. So, our course of treatment is Keppra 2 times a day, and she will be on that for a minimum of 2 years. We've already done a repeat EEG, and it showed no signs of epilepsy, so they're calling it infantile seizures. There's no known reason from blood work, EEG. The original MRI that we didn't show any permanent damage, but she was very, very little. So the doctor isn't 100% concerned or convinced that there isn't some scarring on her brain. So we will repeat the MRI when she's 18 months old, which is in 5 months. And then we will go from there. I don't really know what I am expecting from the MRI. I want to say that it's clean and clear and we're good. But I do sometimes have my moments of weakness and faith, and I am just holding on to Jesus. That's all I got. During this time, I had told you that we hadn't shared with very many people, and it wasn't really for any purpose other than we were just reacting and living and whatever we were doing. At the 4th admittance, my husband posted on Facebook, social media is good for some stuff, about what we were going through. We hadn't even told, my mom knew, I don't think we had told his parents. They live out of state. I'm assuming he called them. Maybe he called them by the 3rd time. I think he did. Anyways, doesn't matter. I made this Facebook post. And that is what community and our village is for. Our friends were in our church and our family were absolutely amazing. Like, I mean, from watching the kids to meals to being there. One of my best friends from high school coming to the hospital, and she knew exactly what I needed. I'm very stubborn, and I'm not going to tell you what I need. I'm going to do it myself. It's just the type of person that I am. She showed up with food and made me eat. I wasn't eating. Made me eat. I think she reheated it for me like 3 or 4 times because I would just nibble a little bit. I couldn't eat. I was sick to my stomach. She made me get up out of that chair holding the baby. She was like, I can hold the baby. It's like, I know you can, but this is where I want to be. She's like, I think you probably need to go walk around. She made me. And at the time that she's telling me this, I'm like, just more appeasing her. But she was right. I needed it. Our family was there. My dad was actually there when the neurologist came in and gave us the diagnosis. And one of the first pediatricians that we saw coming in that told me it was probably an underdeveloped trachea, he came in and apologized. And the residents that were under him, like, I am so sorry that it took this long. And, you know, I mean, everybody was very nice, very apologetic. Our church was absolutely amazing. We didn't have to think about, food or anything. And as I told you, my husband was missing a lot of work. I was really worried about our bills. I knew that we weren't going to pay our electric bill, our cell phone bill, whatever. My best friend in Georgia had rallied together some of our friends in Georgia, and they just sent me money in our PayPal account. And it was the exact amount that I needed. And it's like the $50, $100, $300 that people gave. I mean, it is a lot of money for someone to give me $50, you know, I know that that's a lot. But all of that added up to exactly what we needed, and it blessed us beyond anything. It paid our electric bill so that our lights weren't shut off. Christmas was right around the corner. I was worried about Christmas for for our children, and God provided there, which Christmas is frivolous as far as gifts and stuff. But our family, we came together in a way that I didn't know was possible. Going through that made us so strong. Stronger together is what I mean. So my in-laws came in town to stay with us, or with Nathan and the kids here, because I was up at the hospital. I never left the hospital. One, I was also nursing her too, so I couldn't leave. They came and stayed, and one night, and so also during this time is like when all the sports stuff was starting up. Our kids were back in acro. They were doing soccer and, you know, just all the things. My husband's running them back and forth, and I really felt in my heart that it was very important for him to be the one that was home, because I knew that the kids were super scared, and it worked out that way. But when my in-laws came in town, my husband would come up to the hospital, and he stayed one night up holding her. It was after we had found out, you know, what it was, and I was able to sleep for probably 4 hours, I think, which was amazing when you haven't had sleep in however long. Anyways, so that is Harper's story. Thank you for listening to this if you made it all the way through. She is an amazing blessing from God, and it is never, never far from me. What we went through, what God did for us, how He provided, and how our friends and our church were there for us. Every time I think about it, I just get overwhelmed with gratitude and being so thankful. But like I said, this is our sweet Harper, who's a little fussy today. She's got a cold, but that's life, right? So anyways, I hope that this video was some sort of a great testimony to you. And I would love to hear your testimony in the comments below. I hope that y'all have a blessed day.